Annyeonghaseyo, this is meowmurai. Let's continue our game of Despera Drops running on Nintendo Switch 2. Okay.
立ち止まっている暇などないぞ。準備ならできている。
これでいいか。
なに、大したことじゃないが、お前さんも疲れた顔をしとるな。早く寝た方がいい。ああ、風呂はそっちだ。寝室にある服も使っていいから、好きに着替えなさい。
でも、勝手にお借りするわけには。
もう着る人のいないものだ。どうしても捨てられないもんでな。
Wait. I hurriedly chased off the thought that crossed my mind when I heard his melancholy phrasing.
では、お借りしますね。ありがとうございます。
I borrowed a change of clothes and rushed to the bathroom. Feeling freshened up for the first time in ages, I headed to the bedroom. I noticed there was just one double bed. He really thought we were runaway lovers. Guilt laced my heart at the thought of us deceiving a kindly old man who lived alone. However, there was nothing else I could do. I carefully laid down on the edge of the bed, making sure not to aggravate Ash's wound while he slept. I reminded myself that we would only stay till he recovered. A few days had passed since then. A few days? Oh, okay. Switzerland, Mountain Village, August 14th, 2028, 11:58 Friday. Daniel's house, living room. Oh, Daniel's house is actually very nice. Ash's condition gradually improved, thanks to him getting proper treatment and plenty of food. He could sit up in bed now.
おや、今日は随分と顔色がええな、ハンス。
はい。すみません。ずっと寝込んでしまって。服まで借りてしまったみたいで。迷惑かけました。
怪我人がそんな気を使いなさんな。それよりほれ、ミヤが食事を作ってくれたぞ。
I really hope they don't kill Daniel. That would suck.
ダニエルさんに教わって、シュニッツ&ドゥルンダーを作ってみたんです。食べられますか？
As soon as I mentioned the name of the unfamiliar dish, Ash brightened.
ああ。
He happily took the plate and ate it with some bread. It seemed his appetite had returned in full force. Thank goodness.
そうかそうか。ハンスもこの料理が好きか。
Daniel smiled at the sight of Ash eating with relish, his eyes crinkling.
も他に誰かいたんですか？
ああ、わしの息子が好きでよく食べていたよ。ここも息子の部屋だった。
Ash lapsed into silence when Daniel spoke of his son in past tense. The old man grinned at him.
たくさん食べるとええ。怪我には体力をつけるのが一番だ。
ありがとうございます。手当てに食事まで。なんとお礼を言えばいいのか。
なに、一人で時間を持て余していたところだ。この家もわし一人には広すぎる。だからな、礼をしたいと言ってくれるなら、怪我が治ってからもしばらくここにいてくれんか。
His suggestion rendered us speechless. We were allowed to accept all the blessings he'd given us. Wherever we went, we were always reported, antagonized, and chased. I'd begun to think we'd never find respite. Daniel chuckled at our confusion.
ほれ、客が来ることもなかったし、自分以外が作った料理を食べられるのは久しぶりだからの。わしも嬉しいんだよ。それにこの目だ。畑仕事を手伝ってもらえると助かるしな。
なら、怪我が治ったら必ず仕事を手伝います。
私も たくさん料理を作りますね。
Daniel smiled from ear to ear at our enthusiasm.
ああ、そりゃ楽しみだ。
His smile put me at ease, even if this peace and tranquility was built on lies. I know, at some point in time we gotta tell him the truth. Chapter 14, Ash, Fake. Oh, okay. Well, Fake is not really a good name for a title. I mean, we're fake, but is he fake? Switzerland, Mountain Village, August 28th, 2028, 1532, Monday, Daniel's house, living room. It had already been half a month, wow, since we started living in Daniel's house.
畑に肥料をまいてきました。
おお、もう終わったのか。ハンスは相変わらず仕事が早いな。
じゃあお茶にしませんか？ちょうどケーキが焼けたんです。
I don't know, what if we find out that this is like, this is like the dad of, what's his name? Of Hartfield. Oh, Dad's it's like Hartfield's dad. Oh, what are you doing out here? The house was in a remote corner of the village, and people hardly ever came here. We spent our days with just the three of us. In the small village, Daniel had a farm large enough to sustain himself. It seemed he spent his days cultivating it. While Ash had yet to fully recover from his injury, he was able to do simple jobs in the field. As for me, I spent my time doing chores around the house. Our days were so peaceful, I almost forgot we were on the run.
おお、こりゃエンガディナ・ヌストルテじゃないか。
Is that a what? I took the freshly baked dessert out of the oven, earning a smile of reminiscence from Daniel.
キッチンにレシピがあったので作ってみたんです。
懐かしいな。よくエマが作ってくれたよ。
エマさん？
息子の嫁だよ。背格好も年齢もお前さんぐらいでな。気立てのいい子だった。
So his son and his wife used to live there with him? Why would the recipe be there?
ほれ、そこに写真があるだろう。あの右に写っている子だよ。
The room was decorated with a bunch of faded photos, including a wedding photo of a man and a woman standing side by side in harmony.
ミアとは似てなさそうですが。
何を言う。目元が似てるだろう。
We do? I felt like it was a tad bit absurd to say we looked similar since we were of different nationalities. Yet the person standing beside her, presumably his son, bore a faint resemblance to Ash in terms of his hair color and height. Uh-oh. Ash's expression darkened a little. Perhaps he'd noticed it too. The photos depicted people who'd lived in this house. One of them appeared to be Daniel's wife, while a handful more showed his son growing up. There was also a picture of Daniel and his wife smiling happily with his son and daughter-in-law. Yet now Daniel lived here all by himself.
それよりほら、冷める前に食べるとしよう。こいつにはこの紅茶がよく合うんだ。
Well, I guess we fully haven't gone into Ash's Despera, so this might be the start of this. We happily prepared some tea, then said a silent prayer. Ash and I mimicked what he did, chanting the prayer. I snuck another sidelong glance at the photos as I did so. A happy family with bright smiles was reflected in those pictures. I couldn't bring myself to ask him what happened to his family. Oh boy. Yeah, that's kind of a bad sign here. Switzerland, Mountain Village, August 28, 2028, 23, 27, Monday, Daniel's house, bedroom. That night, I had trouble sleeping. Ash and I had been sleeping in the same bed for days now, pretending to be runaway lovers. Usually, I would have slept on the very edge with my back facing him, but tonight I rolled over so I could see his face. Our eyes met in the dark.
ここはじいさんの息子の部屋だって言ってたよな。
I could tell what he was thinking after listening to the old man's story earlier this afternoon. I nodded.
ダニエルさんは私の借りた服を着る人のいないものだって言ってました。どうしても捨てられなかったって。
I mean, is Grandpa a serial killer?
そうか。
Looking over at the borrowed clothes that had been washed and neatly folded, Ash let out a small sigh.
やっぱり俺らを その息子夫婦と重ねて見てるんだろうな。
I pictured Daniel getting into a fight with the couple, making them leave the house. Maybe that's why they were absent. But if that was the case, wouldn't he treasure their clothing and keep their photos on display? But if that was the case, would he treasure their clothing and keep their photos on display? He commented on our resemblance to them, and the way he looked at us was akin to him gazing upon his lost loved ones. Daniel had probably extended a helping hand or two to suspicious strangers because we reminded him of his son and daughter-in-law who were no longer here. It felt like we were preying on his unconditional love for them, and it made me uncomfortable. Ash seemed to be thinking along the same lines. He wore a complicated expression. However, neither of us said another word on the matter. We lay low to protect our invaluable days of peace, which could be destroyed at any time.
もう寝るか。
そうですね。おやすみなさい、アッシュさん。
ああ。おやすみ、ミカ。
Whispering our real names to each other, we closed our eyes. Neither of us had gotten used to the aliases. The following day, and the day after that, we lived a comfortable life in the little hamlet. Now that Ash had completely recovered and regained his strength, he could do all sorts of physical labor. He helped Daniel with any jobs too difficult for one person, including working out in the fields, roof repair, and maintaining and mending farm equipment. And given how dexterous Ash was, he was able to fix up some dilapidated furniture in the house. Meanwhile, I spent my time doing chores like mending torn clothes and cooking dishes the two men might enjoy. We worked to express our gratitude to Daniel for taking care of us. He kept an eye out for jobs we could do around the house so we'd never run out. He'd always say he couldn't do this or that by himself, so we extended our stay one day at a time. The idea of these peaceful days coming to an end scared me, so I prayed we would never run out of work. Switzerland Mountain Village, September 3rd, 2028, 1611 Sunday, Daniel's House Barn. That day, as I was cleaning up the barn, I heard Ash and Daniel talking. It seemed they had just come in from the fields.
そういえば、ハンスも北部の料理が好きみたいだが、どこで生まれたんだね。
俺の生まれはバーデンです。
バーデンか。温泉のあるいい町じゃないか。ミヤとはそこで出会ったのかい？
はい。町の車の整備工場で働いていた時にミヤと会って。
そうか、車の整備か。では、うちのオンボロも直せるかね。実は息子が使ってたバイクがあってな、数年前に壊れたっきりなんだが。
Man, this guy has like so many things we need.
バイクがあるんすか？
なんじゃ、ハンスはバイクが好きか。
はい。直せないか後で見ときます。
そうかそうか。いや、助かるよ。しかしそうか。そこでミヤと会った。
Oh, Daniel seems to be getting wise to our story here.
ミヤはいい子だな。
はい。正直、俺にはもったいないぐらいだって思ってるんですけど。
そんなことはない。お前さんもいい子だ。まっすぐで誠実じゃないか。真面目でよく働くしな。
Well, we're not the honest part, unfortunately.
ちょいと無口なのがもったいないがな。駆け落ちをしてきたぐらいだ。あの子を愛しているんだろう。お前さんももっといろいろと話した方がいい。思ってることも。
Oh, he's even giving us good love advice. Daniel laughed, then his footsteps drew near, and he opened the barn door. Ash probably never expected me to be here. He gaped in surprise before his cheeks flushed pink. It appeared he'd realized I overheard them. Considering their conversation, I was feeling pretty awkward.
聞いてたのか。
I guess we're gonna thank him.
ありがとうございます。
別に礼を言われることじゃねえ。ただの世間話だからな。
そうですよね。ダニエルさんの話に合わせていただけですよね。
Ash and I were supposed to be an eloping couple. It would be weirder if he didn't speak so fondly of me.
いいじいさんだよな。できればあの人にはあまり嘘をつきたくない。
Ash muttered to himself.
そうですね。
だから必要以上に嘘はつかないって決めてんだ。さっきあの人に言ったことも別に嘘ってわけじゃねえし。
それって。
とにかくそういうことだ。
He can't bring himself to go all the way with the emotion. The awkwardness came back with a vengeance.
車の整備工場で働いてたって本当ですか？
He nodded stiffly at my innocuous question, shelving some stuff he'd brought in from the field.
なあ。
His eyes widened as he realized I was tidying up the spot where he'd slept while injured.
そうか。納屋の片付けを。
はい。後回しにしてしまってたので。傷はもう痛みませんか？
ああ、まだ無理すると痛いけどな。傷はもうすっかり塞がった。見てみるか？
His unexpected offer startled me, which had him blushing in response.
何言ってるんだ俺は。なんでもない。
Finding his unusual fluster amusing, I burst into a fit of giggles.
何笑ってるんだ。
すみません。なんだか嬉しくて。
嬉しい。
Maybe I'd made a strange choice of words, but it really had made me happy. I contemplated why, then answered him.
アッシュさんと前より話せるようになったからでしょうか。
Ash was very quiet. Even when we were on the run with the others, he spent his time in seclusion, reading a book. At once there were only the two of us. We were too busy running away to enjoy leisurely chats. That had to be why I was happy about our current everyday life. Ash remained silent. Confusion and a few other emotions flickered across his face.
俺も。
He was about to say something, but stopped. Mumbling, "It's nothing," he finished cleaning up and left the barn. The tips of his ears were bright red, the blush visible even from behind. That day, we arranged a little party because we'd heard it was Daniel's birthday.
次はこれを混ぜればいいのか？
それはもう少し寝かせておくので、先にこっちをお願いします。
Ash and I stood side by side in the kitchen, preparing for the party. Daniel watched over us with a big smile on his face.
お前さんたちは本当に仲がええな。そういえば駆け落ちしたと言っていたが、結婚式は挙げたのかね。
I was so shocked I nearly dropped my bowl. Thankfully, Ash caught it, then turned to Daniel in embarrassment.
いや、まだです。そんな余裕もお金もなくて。
そうか。そりゃ災難だったな。実はな、うちの村には有名な礼拝堂があるんだ。だから、お前さんたちが良ければなんだが。
Right then, a knock came at the door. It was the first visitor we'd had since we arrived. Ash and I couldn't help but be on edge, assuming it was our pursuers.
やれやれ、誰だね。
Oh boy, who is it? Daniel casually opened the door to reveal a man who looked to be another villager.
おや、ずいぶん久しぶりじゃないか。なんだ、お前さんまでわしの誕生日を覚えていてくれたのかい？
いや、最近日曜の礼拝にも来ないし、見慣れないよそ者がじいさんの家に出入りしてるって聞いて様子を見に来たんだが。
The man stepped inside, his face immediately going stiff the moment he saw us in the kitchen. He was clearly wary of us.
じいさん、この人たち誰だい？
誰って。
こういうことは言いたかないが、よそ者にあんま気を許さん方が。
おいおい、何を言ってるんだ。トーマスとエマだよ。わしの息子夫婦を忘れるなんて、随分と薄情じゃないか。
Oh no, he thinks we're his son and daughter. Oh, that sucks. Daniel was nonchalant as he replied, but we were rooted on to the spot.
トーマスとエマ。いやでもじいさん、あんたの息子夫婦は何十年も前に事故で亡くなったって。
ありゃ手違いだったんだ。前にも言っただろう。ほら、今晩はトーマスとエマが誕生日を祝ってくれると言っとるんだ。準備があるからまた今度にしとくれ。
Daniel shooed away his guest as if to protect us. Well, wait a minute. Just a minute ago, he knew that we were Mia and Hans. The door closed, and a heavy silence fell between us. Daniel stood there, unable to find the words to tell us his son and daughter-in-law were in fact dead.
すまなかったね。小さい村だ。よそ者には敏感なんだよ。だからあんたらはトーマスとエマだってことにしておいた方がええ。気分は良くないだろうが。
Oh, okay, so he was trying to get rid of the villager.
そんなことありません。ありがとうございました。かばってくださって。
Okay, I was really worried there for a minute. I thought, oh, this guy losing it. The man who'd come earlier had a point. Daniel shouldn't let his guard down around strangers. There were real criminals in his house.
すみません。迷惑かけて。
迷惑だなんて思っちゃいないよ。お前さんたちは私の大切な客人だ。いてくれるおかげで毎日随分と助かっておるんだ。さ、料理の続きをしてくれないかね。わしの誕生日を祝ってくれるんだろう。
Daniel chuckled, telling us not to mind the earlier conversation. And even as he laughed, his eyes begged us not to press the matter. I wonder what happened to them. Daniel's birthday party went off without a hitch. It was a small celebration with just the three of us. No one else attended. With his wife, his son, and his daughter-in-law absent, Daniel had been celebrating his birthday all alone this time. Our little party made him so happy. He savored his meal and drank lots of wine, grinning from ear to ear. Daniel's jovial buzz eventually lulled him to sleep. Ash carried him to his bedroom. Switzerland Mountain Village, September 10th, 2028, 22:49 Sunday, Daniel's house, bedroom. Once the party ended and we retreated to our own room, I felt a peculiar pang of loneliness. Before I knew it, it was pouring rain. Droplets pitter-pattered on the roof. I sat beside Ash in bed. Leaning into him, I felt a little less alone.
ダニエルさん、嬉しそうでしたね。一人でワイン一本は飲みすぎだったかもしれませんが。
I was kind of worried, knowing Ash despised alcohol and the people who drank it. But when I brought that up, he smiled gently.
ああいう幸せそうな飲み方なら別に文句は言わねえよ。
そうですね。あと、アッシュさんが作ってくれたレシピも美味しかったですね。
少し焦げたけどな。
でも、すごく美味しかったです。
そうか。
Without saying a word, we each knew what the other was thinking. Someone had come to the house for the first time. Another person knew of our presence besides Daniel.
いつまでここにいられるんでしょう。
In lieu of a response, Ash reached out to caress my cheek. The faint aroma of soap drifted to my nose.
暖かいな、お前は。
He breathed a sigh of relief. His own warmth flowed through his touch. He was trembling a little, as though he might pull away any moment now. I grabbed his arm before he could retreat. A wave of tenderness lifted me up, soothing me till I felt I might burst into tears.
ずっとここにいられたらいいのにな。
So he was thinking the same thing. I rested my forehead on his shoulder.
私もずっとここにいたいです。
You know, as soon as we said this, that means it's not.
3 人で
That means there's going to be bad news.
ああ、そうできたらいいのにな。
We reached for each other like shivering birds, huddling together to ward off an icy breeze. How wonderful would it be if hiding in this house, away from prying eyes, allowed us to escape our fate? In this land where I didn't know a single soul, I had thrown away my name and my past. If only I could start my life anew. Regrettably, that forever we spoke of was far out of reach. I had faith we'd achieve it someday, but for now, all we could do was hold out for it.
あいつらまだ俺らを諦めてないんだよな。
はい。
Out of curiosity, I turned on the TV after Daniel went to bed. The news still named us as wanted criminals. Nothing had changed. Our friends were also featured on the news. While I was glad they also hadn't been caught, the fact that we were still being chased took a toll on me.
この村を出た方がいいんでしょうか。
Yeah, the longer we stay, the more dangers Daniel will be in.
もう少し様子を見ても平気だろう。
While we spoke, Ash fiddled with the tips of my hair. His fingers sometimes brushed my neck, tickling me. He only came to his senses when I wriggled a bit.
悪い、なんかこうしてると落ち着いて。
He apologized, yet his hand didn't leave my hair. I'll say, it calms me down too.
いえ、私も落ち着きますから。
The warmth in his fingertips and the way he gently stroked my hair felt so good. His caress may as well have reached my heart.
ならよかった。
His voice was so soft.
俺のこの手は誰かを傷つけることしかできないとそう思っていたから。
That explained why he avoided physical contact with other people. He feared he'd hurt them. He must have been so hard on himself.
そんなことありません。ダニエルさんだって働き者だって褒めてますし、私だって助けてもらってばかりで。
俺の手は大切なものに触れるには随分と汚れちまっている。
His hand stopped moving. I was worried he'd pull away just like that.
大丈夫ですよ。今までがそうだからって、これからもそうだとは限らないじゃないですか。
お前の言う通りならいいんだが。だけどいつまでもここにいられないのは分かってる。
はい。
Ash heaved a small sigh and lowered his gaze, brought back down to reality and our life on the run.
一人でいるのも暮らす場所を変えるのも慣れてたんだけどな。
よく引っ越してたんですか？
なあ、引っ越しとも少し違うけどな。
He paused, hesitating a moment.
15の頃、家を飛び出してからさ、一人で転々と暮らしてたんだ。
Ash went on to tell me about the cities he'd lived in and what kind of work he'd done. He abandoned his hometown and lived his life aimlessly. He hopped from city to city, working as anything from a mechanic to a delivery man. He didn't care about his lifestyle or what food he ate. Nothing trumped survival. It was Ash's first time opening up about himself. I listened carefully without butting in.
誰かと一緒にいるのは面倒だとずっと思ってた。誰かといれば、どこか一箇所にとどまれば、喧嘩を売られて必ず面倒ごとに巻き込まれるし。陰気だとか、睨んだとかいちいち因縁をつけられて、売られた喧嘩を買ってトラブルを起こして。だから、住む町をすぐに変えて。 アルトドルフでも絡まれただろ。目つきが悪い、仇じゃないって。いつもああだったんだ。
Come to think of it, when we were looking for a casino in Milan, a drunk man grabbed him by the collar. Even when we were on Manao Island, someone told him he looked gloomy.
それでも別に不満なんてなかったんだ。あの頃は。少し面倒だけど、これが普通だと思ってた。それなのに、どうして知っちまったんだろうな。こんな幸せな時間なんかを。
Ash's hands shook. He was terrified to lose this.
これまで誰かがそばにいたことなんてなかったんだ。お前みたいに俺のために泣いてくれるやつはいなかった。いない方がきっと生きやすかったのに。
アッシュさん。
He looked so fleeting, like he might vanish at any moment. I stroked his cheek to convey that I would be there for him. It didn't make sense to me. Ash was such a nice person. It was shocking to know that no one had ever cared for him, not even the way Daniel did. He was even arrested for assault.
どうして傷害事件で捕まったのか聞いてもいいですか？
For the first time, I broached the subject of his alleged crime. I just didn't see how this man lying beside me could be connected with assault. Picking up on my curiosity, Ash answered with some reluctance.
昔からダメだったんだ。血だけは。
Blood?
血を見ると頭がカッとなって冷静な判断ができなくなって殴り返しちまう。それでやりすぎたんだ。
I recalled the incident in Altdorf where Ash punched the man who grabbed him. The look in his eyes back then had been monstrous.
殴られて血が出た瞬間頭が真っ白になるんだ。だからやり返しすぎて捕まった。冤罪とかじゃない。本物のクズ野郎なんだよ俺は。
The gloomy, self-depreciating look on his face told me he despised that about himself.
俺は本当ならお前に触れていいような人間じゃないんだ。
With that low murmur, Ash withdrew his hand from me. There was once again distance between us. I was dying to tell him he was wrong, that he was a kind person. But the thing was, I didn't know what Ash was like before all this. My words would only ring hollow. Besides, he hadn't forgiven himself.
俺が俺じゃなかったらよかったのにな。
He squinted as if he were looking at something dazzling and out of reach, and it made him seem miserable.
俺が本当にじいさんの息子で傷害事件なんか起こしてなかったら、そうしたらちゃんとお前と向き合えたのにな。
It sounded like he'd given up. Ash had quashed his own feelings without giving me the chance to respond. He was far too deep in his yearning to be somebody else, and not a criminal. The pain of not being able to express how I felt piled up like snow. It didn't matter whether he was a criminal who committed assault. He was my protector. He desperately screamed for me, helped me escape a moving train. When I split the bread so he would get more, he noticed right away and made it even. This time he was denying his own feelings because he couldn't forgive himself. That kindness of his was an accumulation of all the things he'd done in his life, even if he denied it.
それでも私は今のアッシュさんがいいです。
I peered into his gray eyes, holding his gaze.
この家の息子だったアッシュさんじゃなくて、あの日護送車で私が出会ったアッシュさんがいいです。
でもお前はクラウンさえいなきゃ普通の人生を送れてただろ。護送車に乗ることもなく俺なんかとも出会わなかった。普通の男と出会ってそいつと結婚してきっと普通に幸せになってたのに、この家の息子夫婦みたいに。
My heart ached when he averted his eyes, telling me he wasn't the one.
そん なこと言わないでください。実際にはクラウンはいますし、彼らに捕まって護送車に乗せられました。そこで私はアッシュさんと出会ったんです。
それでも俺なんかとは会うべきじゃなかった。
Ash denied it over and over again. I couldn't stand him for blaming himself. I wanted him to be more selfish, more affectionate. It had to be because I'd fallen for him. Oh. I should have known this for a while now, but it was the first time I realized my own feelings. I loved his smile whenever I made him his favorite Swiss dishes. I loved the way he cared for me without saying too much. I loved his awkward kindness. The peaceful life we had at the moment wasn't the only thing I was fond of. I loved this gentle, lonely person as well. I reached out to caress his cheek, hoping to convey my feelings.
それでも追われていなかったとしても、私はアッシュさんと会いたいです。私が好きなのは、私を助けに来てくれた不器用で無口で優しいアッシュさんですから。
When I smiled, his face twisted in pain. His hands gripped my shoulders, his eyes swimming with sorrow. Ash leaned in close, but his lips never met mine. He seemed to be in anguish. The hands on my shoulders were trembling fiercely. He didn't come any closer, and the seconds oozed by. My chest tightened. The minuscule distance between us felt impossible to reach, or breach. But Ash was suffering just as much. I could see it in his eyes. There was no sign of rejection there. At the very least, I felt like he was thinking about me and grappling with his own feelings. I was convinced of that.
悪い。
He forced out the word as he let go of my shoulders.
お前を汚したくないんだ。
Wringing the sentiment from his lips, he turned his back to me. I gently reached out and hugged him. He stiffened, pressing my forehead against his head. I told him how I felt.
私はアッシュさんが思っているほど清廉潔白な人間じゃありません。それにアッシュさんは自分が思っているほど汚れてなんていません。
Oh, come on, Mika. You are as pure as you say you are. There's nothing dirty about Mika.
だが俺とお前じゃ生きてきた世界が。
He still wasn't giving up. He was trying to protect me by building a wall between us. While I appreciated the thought, it made me sad.
同じですよ。私たちは同じ世界を生きてるんです。それに私たち共犯者じゃないですか。
共犯者か。
Ash finally faced me again. Furrowing his brow in embarrassment, he smiled awkwardly.
そうだったかもしれねえが、お前の罪も全部俺が背負えればいいのにな。
His gaze was filled with affection and tenderness. The look was enough to hammer home my love for this man. Savoring the warmth and comfort he gave me, I sank into a deep slumber. Oh, we just fell asleep. Okay. Didn't even go for another kiss. Oh, well. The rainstorm from last night had passed by morning. I was already awake, but I pretended to be asleep because I longed for Ash's warmth. It was a fresh morning. Switzerland Mountain Village, September 11th, 2028, 7:33, Monday, Daniel's house bedroom. Until someone pounded on the door, that is. Remembering our sinister feeling from before, we both sprang out of bed. I got dressed in a hurry and checked the living room. Daniel was awake too. He was watching TV when he heard the knock. He got up from his seat and walked towards the door.
そんな叩かんでも聞こえるぞ。一体何だって言うんだい。
じいさん、朝のニュースを見たかい？
ニュースって何のだね。
指名手配犯のだよ。あんたんとこにいるあのよそ者の顔がテレビに映っていたんだ。
Uh-oh, the jig is up. It was the worst possible outcome. It finally hit It finally hit me that we couldn't stay here any longer.
だからうちの息子夫婦だと言っとるだろ
もう何十年も前に死んで葬儀までしたじゃないか。だいたいじいさんの息子夫婦があんな若いわけないだろ
う。うるさい。あれはわしの息子夫婦だ。あんたもいい加減に。
ってほら、今テレビでやってるじゃないか。
The sound of the news covering our case sounded from Daniel's television. He ignored it and shoved the man away instead.
いい迷惑だ。いいから帰っとくれ。これ以上うちの息子夫婦に失礼なことを言えば村の者でも許さんからな。
Exasperated, Daniel slammed the door shut. We had slipped out of the bedroom, planning to escape.
ああ、悪いね。村の連中が朝から騒がしくして。しかし、本当に失礼なやつだ。腹が立つ。
Uh-oh. Nothing's going to happen to Daniel. Having raised his voice so loud, Daniel flew into a coughing fit. Ash rubbed the old man's back as he bent over and hacked it out.
大丈夫ですか?
Daniel's lips trembled when he saw Ash's face.
トーマス。
Ash gasped in surprise. Daniel's eyes went wide, and he helplessly shook his head.
ああ、すまん、ハンス。なんでもない。なんでもないんだ。とにかく、あんたらは気にしなくていい。村の連中のことはわしが何とかしよう。だから、出ていくだなんて言わないでおくれ。
Daniel grabbed Ash's arm with a pleading look on his face.
でも、俺たちは。
Just as we were about to say we were truly wanted criminals, our names came up on the news again. Our faces were accompanied by a stream of info. Mika Amamine, Japanese, charge murder. Ash Meyer, Swiss, charge assault. A new detail was included in the news. There was a bounty on our heads. The prize was as high as 60,000 euros. Ooh, damn. That's a lot of euros. None of us said a word for some time. Even Daniel was at a loss.
俺たちはもう出て行きます。
Ash broke the silence, along with the shocking admission that we were the ones on TV.
ダニエルさん、ごめんなさい。ずっと騙していて。今までお世話になりました。
Ash and I apologized to the old man, who simply shook his head with a bitter smile.
本当はな。本当は最初から知っておったんだ。
Of course he knew,
お
man.
前
This
さん
guy's
た
too
ち
smart.
が指名手配されている逃亡者だとな。だが怪我をしたハンスがトーマスと重なって見えてしまってな。我慢できんかったんだ。それにハンスを必死に看病をするミアも、怪我をしながらもミアを大切そうにするハンスも、報道で見るような悪いものには見えなくてな。実際一緒に暮らしていてよくわかった。お前さんらはまっとうで誠実な人間だ。わしの見立ては合っていた。わしは分かっているんだ。あの報道の方が間違っているとな。だからお前さんらは騙してなんかない。わしがお前さんたちを騙していたんだよ。それほどまでにこの日常が愛おしかったんだ。
I know they really drew Daniel like really well. I mean, he just has these like sad eyes on him. In that moment, his voice had all the strength and joy of a stadium full of cheers. Right then, we heard people outside crying out in the hopes that they could catch us. The bounty, a whole 60,000 euros. Get him.
なんと浅はかな連中だ。
そろそろ行きます。ここでしていただいたことは忘れません。いつかお礼を必ず。
やはり生きなさるか。
Even after all of this, Daniel was hoping to stop us.
はい。ダニエルさんにこれ以上迷惑をかけるわけにはいきませんから。
Daniel smiled sadly.
お前さんたちと一緒に過ごした日々は、わしにとってとても楽しい時間だった。本当にもう何年ぶりかわからない楽しい毎日だったんだ。ずっとこのままお前さんたちと過ごせたらどれだけいいか。
ダニエルさん。
俺もです。できることならずっといたかった。
The villagers' footsteps were fast approaching, as were their voices, which were thick with malice and desire. Daniel quietly opened the door and guided us to the barn. Switzerland Mountain Village, September 11th, 2028, 7:53, Monday, Daniel's house barn.
このバイクを使うとハンスが修理をしてくれたやつだ。給油も済んでいるからしばらくは走れるだろ
う。でもこれは息子さんのじゃ。
いいんだ。お前さんももう息子のようなもんだろう。
Ash grimaced at the sight of Daniel's smile, looking like he might cry any moment.
俺、じいさんみたいな人が父親に欲しかったです。本当にあんたが俺の父さんなら。
やめなさい。本当の親御さんに申し訳ないだろう。だがありがとう。
Daniel patted Ash on the shoulder, eyes drooping.
お前さんにそう思ってもらえて嬉しいよ。それよりほら、持って行きなさい。
A burlap sack filled with clothes and a few days' worth of food was slung over the bike. Daniel must have known this day would come.
着替えがなければ不便だろう。いつでも戻ってきていいからな。ハンスもミアもわしにとっては大切な家族だ。
ありがとうございます、ダニエルさん。
I thanked him again before telling him our real names. Mika Amamine, Ash Meyer. He had to know this from the news already, but I wanted something so important to come from my own mouth.
アッシュとミカか。いい名前だ。どうか無事に生き延びておくれ。二人が逃げ切れるよう、わしも祈りを捧げていよう。いつか再会できるのを楽しみにしているよ。
And I feel really bad for Daniel. I mean, this really sucks for him.
はい。いつか必ず戻ります。
さようなら、ダニエルさん。ありがとうございました。
Ash and I hopped onto the bike. Daniel opened the door of the barn, and we rode out. The old farmer watched us from behind, seeing us off. The bike soared over the angry mob's heads, and we sped down the road. We were like birds who'd taken to the skies with newly healed wings, pained by the loss of our temporary nest. We left Whitnow behind, with the crowd still chasing after us. They only vanished once we reached the Autobahn. I was on the back of the bike rather than in the sidecar this time around. The Autobahn looked even more impressive from where I sat. And though Ash's driving was somewhat reckless, the warmth of his back thawed my fear. I wasn't afraid in the least. In fact, I felt like he was driving more smoothly than before.
怖くないか。
はい、大丈夫。
そうか。よかった。
Okay, I'm glad they didn't kill Daniel. I was worried there would be like some sort of scene with the villagers torching his house or something. You know, like I said, we haven't really got to Ash's Despera yet, so it really wasn't quite, we're not quite there yet. He was probably playing it a little safer out of consideration for me. I buried my face in his broad back, feeling a rush of joy from his subtle kindness. From time to time, the police noticed us and gave us chase, but Ash managed to avoid them. He steered the bike so fluidly without the sidecar, as though he really had grown wings. Even he was speeding to lose the police, or even when he was speeding to lose the police, he looked back and called out to me, confirming my presence. The scenery changed from mountains to cities. We kept on riding without a destination. Switzerland, Baden, September 11th, 2028, 1914, Monday. Streets. Eventually, we arrived in the city of Baden. Ash parked the bike on a hill overlooking Baden's old town by the riverside. He gazed at the cityscape in wonder. He looked bewildered. Perhaps he'd never expected he'd end up here. It reminded me of their conversation from before.
そういえばバーデンという町の生まれだってダニエルさんに言ってましたけど、それってこの町のことだったんですね。
ああ。だから、来るつもりはなかったんだ。
Ash lapsed into pensive silence as he stared at the old streets. I wondered if he only had painful memories of his birthplace.
来ちまったものは仕方ないか。
While Ash kept his eyes fixed on the scenery, looking somehow defiant, I heard voices nearby.
ねえ、あそこにいるの、あれじゃない？噂の懸賞金の。
Oh, they already made us out, huh?
マジかよ。でも7人もいないぞ。ちょっと写真確認しようぜ。
Ash had a dangerous glint in his eyes. He must have heard them too. I quickly kept his cheeks in both hands before he could search for the source.
アッシュさん、睨んじゃダメです。
だが、
I figured it was a habit for him. He would be on edge if he didn't do it, like when a wild animal had to bristle when faced with a threat. Yet if he glared at the onlookers, it would only confirm their suspicions about us being the fugitives shown on TV. We would look even more suspicious if we up and left. I smiled at Ash, hoping it would reassure him and lessen our image as a pair of wanted criminals.
私を見てください。
There were a few couples on this hill. It provided an excellent view of the city amid the cool evening breeze, making it the perfect date spot. I gazed into Ash's eyes, trusting that we would seem just like another pair of lovebirds.
世間ではまだ7人で逃亡してると思われてるみたいですし、恋人のふりでもすればきっとごまかせます。
恋人のふりか。
His face contorted with sorrow as he said so.
そうだよな。
Though he sounded pained, a smile rose to his lips.
だが、恋人のふりと言っても、どうすればいいんだ。
私がアッシュさんの恋人だったらしたいことをしたらいいと思いますけど。
したいことか。わかった。
All of a sudden, Ash pulled me into an embrace. His hold on me was strong yet gentle. I felt his heat, the rhythm of his heart.
柔らかい。温かいな。
I was about to say it'd be funny if he just broke out some lawn darts and started playing. I've always wanted to do this with my girlfriend. Ash whispered huskily into my ear.
あれ、顔違うっぽいな。写真だともっと目つき悪いし。
だよね。あの人すっごい優しそうな顔しているし、凶悪犯になんて見えないもんね。それに普通指名手配犯ならこんなところに来ないよね。
Whew, it worked. Though their retreating footsteps brought us some relief, we stayed in our embrace until the sun went down and everyone had left, just to be sure.
恋人のふりか。
Ash muttered to himself as the sun sank over the horizon.
思っていたよりも辛いな。
The last rays of sunlight illuminated his anguished expression before they vanished completely.
それでこれからどうしましょう。
It was nighttime now. We strolled through the city under the glow of the street lamps, hoping we still looked like lovers. Once enough time passed and the lights winked out, there was a chance we'd be heckled again. There was also a risk we'd be stopped by police. Daniel had put some money inside the burlap sack, so it wasn't like we were too broke to afford a hostel. That said, we had agreed not to use the money unless it was absolutely necessary. Besides, we could be reported again if we booked accommodations.
町を出てどこかで野宿しますか？
Ash looked like he didn't want to be here. He remained silent for a while, then shook his head.
いや、一応当てがある。気は進まないが。
With a disgruntled comment, he walked off without hesitation. Okay, we are approaching the top of the hour, so why don't we stop it there? This is meowmurai. You've been watching Despera Drops, running on Nintendo Switch 2. Yeah, boy, I'm glad it ended up the way it did, because that could have been real ugly. had these riders been especially cruel to us. So thankfully that wasn't the case there. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream.